sorry, Cassie. We're all sorry, Cassie.
Trust me, Carrie. You can trust me. Trust me, Carrie. You can trust me. Trust me, Carrie. You can trust me.
Hello and welcome to Bench Movie Club. My name is Ben.
I'm Charlie.
Each podcast we talk about a different film that we like, and we're going to go through all different kinds of movies, different genres like horrors, comedies, classics, the old black and white, everything, a bit of everything. So today is my choice, and the film I've chose is the 1976 film Carrie.
Directed by Brian De Palma and based on Stephen King's first ever novel, isn't it?
That's right.
Of the same name.
Yes.
Which he was going to get rid of, wasn't he?
Yeah, he actually chucked it. And his wife said this is actually a good story. So
Yeah.
because of his wife, and it was his first ever feature film, his first ever novel, and it was the first ever film of his. That's what made his name, really. So this is how it all started, really, for Stephen King.
And it's weird in a way, because when I watched that film, if I'd never known who'd written it, I'd have assumed it was a woman had wrote it. Because where it's so personal about a teenage girl's
Very
sort of
female,
puberty, you know,
and also all the other girls in the it's all about girls, really, isn't it?
How toxic girls can be in school. And you think, well, Stephen King obviously didn't go through that, but he did get inspiration from people.
I think also he did actually get a lot of things like that. He actually spoke to his wife about. So I think he a lot of the character probably did come from his wife asking certain situations like he wouldn't have known about, like periods and stuff like that, I expect.
Well, I've got from here, which I read, Carrie was inspired by two girls Stephen King observed in grade school and high school. In his introduction to a new edition of Carrie, King called them Tina White and Sandra Irving, so as not to posthumously tarnish their names, since not everyone agrees with Carrie's actions. Tina was a peculiar girl who came from a very peculiar family. Her mother wasn't a religious nut, she was a sweepstake nut who subscribed to magazines for people who entered contests. In school, Tina was quiet, sat in the back row, and was always bullied because she only had one set of clothes. And when she finally got a new outfit and was very proud of it, the bullying did not cease. The other girl, that's quite sad. You can see where you got that from. The other girl, Sandra, lived down the street from the house that King grew up in and was raised by a single mother. When a 16-year-old King assisted her mother in moving some furniture, he was struck by the massive cross that hung above the couch. Sandra was also avoided by her peers because of her seizures and strange dress. Sadly, neither of these girls made it to the age of 30. Tina took her own life and Sandra died from a seizure alone in her apartment.
That's sad.
Really sad. It's tragic, both of them. Almost predicting the demise of the lonely person.
Yeah. Oh, that's sad. But that's with this film, to me, I mean, I don't see it as a horror film. I think I see it as it's about bullying, it's about abuse. And it's just, I just find it just really sad. And it's like that moment, you know, at the end.
I don't see it as a horror. I see it as a tragedy.
Yeah.
Because if you said to someone, "Oh, what's the name of the monster in Carrie?"
There isn't no.
If someone an idiot, a person who doesn't really pay attention, "Oh, it was Carrie. She does all this stuff with. She's not the monster. Her mum's the monster, or the bullies are the monsters.
Yeah.
She's a poor victim all the way through it." And you think all she wants is like a normal life. So when she's at the prom, and you see some happiness.
She's amazing, Sissy Spacek.
Oh yeah,
you actually believe, like you can see the happiness on her face. The very first time I knew about this film, and it's really strange, and I think this is before you was born.
I've got this in my notes. Ben found a book with Carrie.
Yeah, no, well, let me tell it. Let me tell it because it's my story.
Yeah, go on.
No, I think I must have been about 6 years old, I think. And I think, yes, before you was born, so it was probably like me and George. And I don't know if you remember, you won't remember Gatwick House, he was only a baby when we left there. But right across the road from it, there was the pub, and opposite the pub, there was, it was called the 1 O'Clock Club.
I know the 1 O'Clock Club.
Right.
With
and
all
that
the
was
gingerbread man collage.
Yeah, and what would you describe that as? It's like
this is a club for children. It was like a play school.
It's like a play school kind of thing, and they used to have like sort of little car boot sale things there, and used to sort of like painting, colouring in, all that kind of stuff.
I imagine it was more popular during like half term and school holidays. So, it was, like when I was a kid, when the school's done, obviously your parents are still working, they'd send you to like summer school, you'd call it, or play school, and you'd go there. So instead of school, all you do is play about all day and have like little chocolate.
They'd done like face painting over there and things like that. It was, but I remember they had this like yard sale, which they'd say in America, which is like a car boot sale kind of thing here. Yeah. And I came across this book. Now, remember, I was 6 years old. And if you know the classic cover for this book, it's literally just, it says Carrie, and there's like the face, and it's just the blood dripping down. And I remember going, I was just obviously like a little weird kid just staring at this picture of this face. Didn't know nothing about it, because I couldn't read about what it was about. It had no pictures in it. Well, I could read, I could. But there was like, I didn't know what it was about, but I just was fascinated by this cover. Yeah. And I remember looking at it and staring at this face. And I remember Mum looked and went, "What's that you've got there?" Like, she took it off me and she took it back over as I would say, "What are you selling this to my little 6-year-old for?" And I was really upset. And I remember that. It's probably one of my first memories.
So traumatic.
Yeah.
And you could relate to Carrie.
Exactly. I didn't know what it was. But, so that is my first memory of Carrie. And then obviously when I've seen the film, I can't remember when I first seen the film, but it was when I was young. But I've always loved the film, and I think it's so well cast. Piper Laurie and Sissy Spacek are absolutely amazing, and they was both nominated for an Academy Award, and that's very rare for
the 29th Academy Award, 49th Academy Award.
Because that's really rare for everyone said, "Oh, you're not going to get a nomination because they don't nominate horror films." No, and it's like they both got a nomination, but they definitely deserved it because both of them was that they brought them characters to life like no one else would have been able to. Yeah. Yeah, like Sissy Spacek, when you look at her first, she looks like awkward and she looks like really sort of like plain and sort of she just looks like she doesn't stand out. She looks like she's the type to get bullied. Then she gets done up for the prom and she looks absolutely beautiful. Yeah. She looks stunning, like her hair and everything about her. And it's like, but then she gets that blood on her. She looks scary as fuck. It's like she's all like the eyes, and so she was so good at like it was.
She does all these different stages, so she's like this scared little rabbit. Yeah, like and when you, it's so believable as well because she's not got one eye on the camera trying to look all attractive and stuff, which I I don't want to talk about the new one too much, but I watched the new one, that Chloe Moretz Grace and Julianne Moore, who are both great actresses. But the film itself just misses the whole point. And you look at Chloe Moretz Grace, and she's still attractive all the way through the film. It's like you missed the whole point. And then when she turns evil, when she turns psychotic at the prom, she's waving her arms about as if like some weird conjurer. No. Whereas her eyes in this, and she just. The fact that she doesn't move, she just moves her head.
She's just looking, and she's like, it's just basically very small movements, but really effective. She looks really scary. Yeah, it takes and over. The thing is, it's like I did watch that remake, and obviously because I love this one so much, I looked at it and it's straight away. I'm like, no way. Why would you mess with a classic? I mean, that one will be forgotten. This one will last forever. This one is going to be the one that outlives them all. It's like...
Well, I watched the trailer and it had the little clip of Julianne Moore telling her to get under the stairs. Yeah. And you can see, again, Julianne Moore is a brilliant actor. I've liked loads of things that she's in, but this, she's like trying to be scary. She's like, get under the stairs! Yeah. But what Piper Laurie did, because where she thought it was a comedy... And she's sort of going so over the top, nutcase religious person that you think there are people like that. I've met people like that.
She was scary. I mean, I was scared of her when I was younger.
And she doesn't have to. She doesn't shout. She just goes. It's like she's wailing at her, begging her. Oh, why are you doing this to me? Why? Yeah. But that's intimidating enough. Yeah. You know, because you're always scared of your parents. Well, probably not nowadays, because parents for kids nowadays are wusses. But back when we were younger, if mum suddenly looked at us, gave us a glare, was like, oh,
yeah, that was scary enough. Yeah,
you respected your authoritative, and you can see Carrie being such a weak person. The mum didn't have to do much when she sort of drags her under the stairs.
Yeah, you know, it was like what they brought to them characters was way more than what was on their pages and on their scripts.
Loads of the casting. It's a great cast.
Most of them was their first ever films.
They done like a big joint open audition. It was him and George Lucas were both casting. So George Lucas casting for Star Wars, and Brian De Palma's casting for Carrie, and I think it was George Lucas had was like they considered Tommy Ross, William Katt, who plays Tommy Ross auditioned for the part of Luke Skywalker.
Yeah.
And
I think Amy Irving as well.
Amy Irving auditioned for Princess Leia. Yeah. And PJ Souls, I see an interview with her where she said she'd gone to that audition and George Lucas was a bit indifferent towards her. But Brian De Palma said straight away, no, I want you in my film and bring your red cap.
Yeah.
Because he liked the red hat.
Yeah.
And then she was only a small part in the film, but when knowing the opening volleyball scene, as she walks past and hits a Carrie with her red hat, that made Brian De Palma want to put her in it more.
If you look at it, when she hits her with a hat, it sort of catches on the clasp and it pulls a bit of her hair out.
Yeah.
So then she walks off. But as soon as she done it, she went back and she went, oh my God, I'm so sorry. She goes, no, it will look good.
Yeah.
So she was like, and proper method, wasn't she? Sissy Spacek.
But also that PJ Souls, she burst an eardrum.
That was, towards the end.
With the hose on a... So when they were doing the prom scene where Carrie's...
We've skipped quite a lot forward here.
It doesn't matter. We don't be. Okay. But it's just relevant to what you're saying about her getting injured.
Yeah.
PJ Souls got injured. She burst an eardrum, which she said was one of the most painful things ever. So it's still in the film.
Yeah.
And she just... kudos to her for staying still when she said it's an undescribable pain.
She went straight to hospital.
Yeah, and she was deaf for 6 months in one ear.
Ugh.
And you think, that poor woman.
See, like health and safety weren't the same back then.
That poor, cute woman. Yeah.
But she's also said as well, PJ Souls, she's said that was basically the start of her career. She goes, if it wasn't for Carrie, she goes, she probably wouldn't be where she is now. Because
John Carpenter saw her in Carrie, and that's when he put her in Halloween.
Exactly.
So straight away... Probably the two biggest
even them two films. That's her set for life. Like she's iconic because she's in these two iconic films.
And also it helps that they're horror because where the horror fan base is so loyal, they'll automatically say, right, not only are you in. I mean, if you're one classic horror film is good enough for most horror buffs, you go, oh, I love this guy. He was in. Whatever,
Werewolf or something,
Reanimator or something. But PJ Souls is in Carrie and Halloween, which straight away top tier horror films. On lists, they'll both be in the top 20
easily.
Yeah, and she's in both of them, so she's lucky. Funny thing about Nancy Allen was in RoboCop. She's a good character. She's a good guy, right? She's got this very short, tomboyish haircut, and she's a cop, and she is not attractive at all.
Is she?
I don't think so.
Because she's really attractive in Carrie. I mean,
in RoboCop, she's not attractive at all, and yet she's a good guy. And yet you go to Carrie, where she's a bitch, like one of the worst characters in the film, but she's attractive in Carrie. When I see it, because I'd seen Carrie years ago, but never put the two and two together.
Yeah.
I'd seen RoboCop a million times. Carrie I'd only seen once or twice, and it's only in recent years when I watched Carrie I was like, oh God, it's Lewis from RoboCop.
And it's not that many years later, is it?
Well, I think it's about 10 years. Wait, this is...
When's RoboCop?
88. So it's about 12 years later.
About 12 years later, yeah.
But even still, looking at her with the long hair, and she's quite tall and skinny in it.
Yeah.
Whereas when you see in RoboCop, she looks short and plump. She looks... Well, she's not plump, but she just looks shorter. She looks more tomboyish, which I suppose she's supposed to be because she's a cop. But I think... she doesn't look half as womanly. Yeah,
and she also, the thing is as well, she goes like, because her and John Travolta, they had quite a funny sort of like rapport between the two of them. And she goes, all their little banter bits, she goes, they thought that they was going to be like the comedic sort of bits of the film. They didn't realise that they're going to be like as evil as they sort of turned out. She thought they was, because they had quite a sort of funny banter in the car and all that, and they thought that they'd be the light relief. It's only when they looked at the edit and they said, I didn't realise how evil we was.
So Jack Fisk, as we said, was the art director, and he met Sissy Spacek on Badlands.
That's right, yeah.
They worked
4 years before, I think that was.
Yeah, and then a couple of years before, they worked together on Brian De Palma's Phantom of the Paradise. Have you seen that?
No.
I read, it's quite highly rated on IMDb. It's like 7.2.
Is it a horror film?
No, it looks like, reading the synopsis, it's almost like a sort of 70s version of Phantom of the Opera. Oh, Betty Buckley, she dubbed the voice of the boy on the bike. No, creepy Carrie, creepy Carrie.
Oh, was that her?
That's her.
That was her voice.
Because if you watch the trailer, the original Carrie trailer, the boy sounds completely different.
Yeah.
He sounds younger. He sounds like this the real boy's voice. Creepy Carrie. But they got her. Brian De Palma asked Betty Buckley, "Can you do the line?" So she had to be in the recording studio going, "Creepy Carrie, ah!" And she said that Brian De Palma was pissing himself laughing while she's doing it. He's going, "No, it's great. Do it again. He kept getting her to do it.
They also, apparently, because it was like, I think apart from Sissy Spacek, and I think Piper Laurie had done some films, but she hadn't acted for 15 years. So, but I think the rest of them, it was like their first film. So they was all really excited, and they loved every sort of bit of it. It was like, this is like, I suppose you would be if it's your first ever film. It's like, oh my god, this is what it's like, and like all the filming schedules and all this. I suppose it is. It's like a fascinating experience. Do you know what I mean? So. For most of them, I think even Betty Buckley, I think it was her first like sort of major film.
Yeah.
You know?
Sissy isolated and studied Gustav Dorés' illustrated Bible. So she studied the body language of people being stoned. And she started each scene and ended it with a different pose. This was inspired by Jack Fisk, who was the art director. He helped her so much. Obviously, it's his wife or girlfriend, I don't know what
it was. His wife, I think, at the time, yeah.
So he's obviously wanting her to do well.
I think they're still married as well.
Well, I hope they are.
Yeah, I think they are. I think they're still married.
Brian De Palma married, what's her name?
Amy Irving.
No.
Oh, no.
Steven Spielberg married Amy Irving. Brian De Palma married
Nancy Allen.
Nancy Allen, that's it. But yeah, saying about the artwork, that I see one today, which I thought was really good. It was piece of art's called The Story of Lady Macbeth from 1851. And as soon as I show you the picture, you can see Carrie.
Oh yeah, what's that then?
That's a piece of artwork called.
That's not supposed to be Carrie then.
No, this is called The Study of Lady Macbeth from 1851. So that's where they got that imagery from.
Right.
So that's why
it looks like it could be Carrie.
Like the fire with her walking down.
Yeah.
But that's Macbeth. That's Lady Macbeth.
Oh, is it?
I think the reason she goes so psychotic at that end bit, because she's had little moments where the boy's teasing her, she makes him fall off his bike and throws her mum back on the bed. All these little bits like, "Oh, get away from me, where you're attacking me." I think it's the fact that she was given so much happiness before it happened.
She was probably it was like a dream come true, and that's what it is, because you can see on her face.
And she thought
everyone's clapping her, and it's like she's thinking, finally, I've been accepted. And it's genuine sort of happiness on her face, like you believe
for that to be
that.
taken away from her. It's
like straight away. It's like I let my guard down.
Angry.
I let my guard down, and that way, and that's also why, because people always say, "Was the teacher laughing? Was this one laughing?"
Oh, it wasn't.
No, what it was, because you could see as soon as that happens, distraught a lot of them are. There's a couple of them laughing, like the one with the cat.
Souls.
Yeah, like what's her name?
Ones.
Norma. Yeah.
The hot ones were laughing.
Like they're all laughing, but I suppose she's then hearing and she's looking and she's sort of seeing them all laugh, even though they're not laughing.
And it echoes her mum's.
They're all going to laugh at you, yeah. And also the scene when they're all chucking the tampons and all that at her, all the girls in that said about that just made them feel so uncomfortable. And it's like they felt, especially because it was like a mob mentality. A couple of them was actually sort of feeling like you're hating her.
Yeah, Nancy Allen said that.
Yeah, and she said, she goes, it was probably the most uncomfortable thing she's ever had to film.
And this is also one of those rare cases where, well, not necessarily rare. Stephen King loved this film.
Yeah.
Loads of his films, like The Shining, infamously, he doesn't like.
He doesn't like, yeah.
He likes Stand By Me. He loves this. Oh, quick side note. You know, Stand By Me and this film, and many of his films, are all in the same universe. Right, so in the book, in the original novel, where she, after, obviously the ending's different, and she destroys half the town. She's blowing things up. And she destroys a place called Teddy's Ammo Co. The owner of that, in the book, is Teddy Duchamp, who is Corey Feldman in Stand By Me. So that's, because that's set earlier, isn't it?
Right, cool.
So what's happened to him, and they explain it in the Stand By Me, he's grown up and he's opened this shop. It happens to be in the same town, and Carrie blows it up.
Right.
So there's a nice little connection.
I like little nods like that. So I never knew that.
Let me. I've got the original ending. Right. So the prom initially goes well for Carrie. Tom's friends are welcoming, and Tommy finds he is attracted to Carrie as a friend. Chris successfully rigs the election, and Carrie and Tommy are elected prom queen and king. However, at the moment of the coronation, Chris, from outside, dumps the pig blood onto Carrie's and Tommy's head. So I think it's much better her under the stage rather than outside. Tommy is knocked unconscious by one of the buckets and dies. The sight of Carrie drenched in blood invokes laughter from the audience. Carrie leaves the building humiliated. So straight away in the novel, they're saying everyone's laughing at her. But it's so much better where you see, like, the vast majority of people, they'll just go with the crowd, or if they want people to be happy, it's just a few poisonous people change it. Outside, Carrie remembers her telekinesis and decides to enact vengeance on her tormentors. Using her powers, she seals the gym, which activates the sprinkler system, inadvertently electrocuting many of her classmates and causing a fire that eventually ignites the school's fuel tanks, destroying the building in a massive explosion. Only a few lucky staff and students escape. Carrie, overwhelmed by rage, thwarts an incoming effort to fight the fire by opening the hydrants within the school's vicinity, then destroys gas stations and cuts power lines on her way home. She unleashes her telekinetic power on the town, destroying several buildings and killing hundreds of people. As she does this, she broadcasts a telepathic message showing the townspeople that the carnage was caused by her.
Right, yeah. See, now that is the book, right? This is, I think, one of them rare occasions where the film is better. And I think even Stephen King feels, I know it's changed. Basically, they didn't have the budget to do the blowing up of the whole town. But as he explained, your whole life is high school. When you're that age, that is your life. So he said, well, let's destroy the high school. And the fact that it was all in there when it all happened, the fact that she left and then comes back, I like the fact that it happens there and then, like, she gets the blood on her, Tommy gets killed, she's standing there, and it's straight away she loses it. Whereas if she runs out and then comes back, it's sort of, you lose that bit of a power, because it's like, that whole moment is like, she's just engulfed with this rage, and it's not her no more. She's not, you can't even get to her. Like, even the teacher, like, she sees the teacher and the teacher's screaming Carrie, she makes the baseball thing come down and cut her in half. You know, and also basketball thing. And also what he said to her from the directions of that, he said, right, like, when you're dying, like, 'cause obviously she's been cut in half, got the blood in her mouth, he goes, I want you to imagine you're a bug on a pin. That's what you got to be.
So yeah, obviously with that, I think Stephen King, loads of people like, I think he's a fantastic writer. He writes so much stuff, but he's well known for sort of mucking up the ending to things. Like sometimes, like with The Shining, I think he blows up the hotel, but Stanley Kubrick done it much better with him freezing in the snow. And with this, like, after all that stuff that happened with her destroying the town, she still goes on. So she goes home to confront her mum, who believes Carrie has been possessed by Satan and must be killed. So you can see, obviously, that's where the film really ends, is here. Margaret tells her conception was a result of what may have been marital rape. She stabs Carrie in the shoulder with a kitchen knife, and Carrie halts Margaret's heart as she says a prayer. Yeah,
she slowly stops her heart, which is not as powerful as that brilliant ending.
Yeah,
with all the
so symbolic.
All the kitchen utensils.
Yeah,
getting her exactly in the way of that
Saint
Sebastian.
Yeah.
Crucifix, which is a scary looking thing.
Which is the thing that everyone sort of, I mean, even when I was younger, I thought, isn't that a funny looking Jesus? But it's not Jesus, it's Saint Sebastian.
I think you just automatically think it's
you
Jesus.
You assume, because of the religious aspect. And I've watched quite a few reaction videos, and when they see the Saint Sebastian under the stairs, they automatically go, that Jesus looks creepy.
Yeah, I thought it was Jesus, though.
It's natural because the way he's got, like, he looks like Jesus pretty much. But it's the arrows and stuff that give it away, which is how Saint Sebastian was executed, even though he supposedly survived that.
Yeah, but they've definitely done something to it. I think they've definitely done something to the eyes of that statue. Added a few more arrows.
The eyes look so luminous. Yeah. They're so bright white. So when it's
a bit scary.
When it's fading, the eyes stay there the longest.
Yeah.
So I think that was a better thing than her heart stopping.
And also Stephen King wished he'd thought of the ending. He goes, he loved that ending. He goes, I wish I'd thought of that myself. You know, the bit where the hand comes out the grave.
Yeah. But instead he went with this, with mortally wounded Carrie makes her way to the roadhouse where she was conceived. She sees Chris and Billy leaving. Having been informed of the destruction by one of Billy's friends, after Billy attempts to run Carrie over, she takes control of his car and sends it into a wall, killing Billy and Chris. Which they have that, but just like a little almost throwaway.
I think the way the film is perfect. I think
it works.
It works. Definitely. It works so much better.
Like with Back to the Future, when they was going to have the atomic bomb, and instead they thought, we can't afford that. Let's come up with something else, and have the DeLorean sent back by lightning. It's so much better.
Yeah.
This is the problem with films. So many films nowadays like with the big superhero films, they think we can go as big as we want because of computers.
Yeah.
And you think, if only you had the hurdles, if only you went, we've run out of budget, be more clever, you'd strip it back, have a few key characters, have interesting conversations, rather than just explosion.
There's something about that era, like with Texas Chainsaw Massacre, with Exorcist, with Carrie, with Halloween. It's like the fashion and the everything about that kind of feel is.
But there is still loads of terrible films from that era. But these are the ones which are elevated so much that they try to remake them, they try to do sequels, and it just never works. You can't.
They missed the point. I think what you need to do with a good horror film, you got to strip it right back.
Yeah.
The least you see in a horror film, the more scary it is, because your brain tells you've seen more than what you have.
So, going back to the ending, Sue, who has been following Carrie's broadcast, finds her collapsed in the parking lot, bleeding from the knife wound. The two have a brief telepathic conversation. Carrie had believed that Sue and Tommy had set up the prank, but realises they were innocent. Carrie dies, crying out for her mother. Then a state of emergency is declared, and the survivors make plans to relocate. Chamberlain foresees desolation in spite of the government insisting on rehabilitating the worker districts. All this isn't necessary. This is like what people theorise happens afterwards. Desjardins, who is the
Miss Collins,
and the school's principal, blame themselves for the disaster and resign from teaching. Sue publishes a memoir based on her experiences. You don't need to know this. A white committee report investigating paranormal abilities concludes that there will be others like Carrie. An Appalachian woman enthusiastically writes to her sister about her baby daughter's telekinetic powers and reminisces about their grandmother who had similar abilities. And see, he starts going off, and he doesn't know when to end a book. And many of his books are notorious like this. You think, oh, that's the ending. Wait, no, it keeps going on. Why are they telling us what happens 5 years later? So we don't care.
Yeah.
Sometimes you need someone else, a third party like Brian De Palma, to come in
who's
and
seen
say,
that there is something here, there is something special here, but it just needs to be tweaked, and it needs to be you need to sort of bring these characters to life, and you don't need to go off on a tangent with it, because otherwise you end up sort of losing concentration, and there's not a part in this film where you go, oh, it's boring me. It's really well paced, and I love the progression of you sort of seeing how Carrie transforms throughout the film, and it's just really sad. That bit of the prom is just really heartbreaking.
Oh yeah.
You know?
No, it is. You feel for it. And that's the weird thing about it.
That if it had lasted and it gone through to the next day without any of that happening, then I guarantee she would have been a lot more popular, and she would have been probably like a normal teenage girl.
Oh, that's it. If she'd only got off that stage just before the blood went down, or if the blood never went.
Yeah.
And, then, it was complete. It would have been a complete turnaround of life for her. She'd been more. She was already starting to stand up to her mum. Although saying that, her mum might have still tried to kill her when she got home.
Her mum would have tried to kill her.
Yeah.
So no matter what would happen.
Unless she went off with Tom, or like I theorised about Tommy going, right, you're coming with me, and then go back with her and say she's coming to get her stuff, and maybe the mum tries to get Tommy and he punches her in the face and knocks her out or something.
Yeah, okay, well that's...
It wouldn't work as well. Brian De Palma, also, very successful director. This is probably his huge breakthrough. He made films before this, but then after this, he had Blowout with John Travolta again, and I think Nancy Allen was in that as well. Scarface, of course.
Oh, brilliant film.
1983, brilliant film. Untouchables from 1987, another great film.
I've seen that.
Raising Cain, Carlito's Way, Mission Impossible, Snake Eyes. And then after that, they just lost in popularity. His most recent one, Domino, I think was like a straight to DVD.
Oh, okay.
It's a shame, because he is a fantastic director, but at the same breath, I'd be well proud if that was my filmography.
Listen, and also, I'll tell you what I like about this film as well. Everyone is still so proud of it.
And the mum's reaction to dying was going to be completely different. In the script, she was meant to be in pain and stuff, but instead she said to Brian De Palma, she went, I think she'd enjoy dying. I think because this is what she wants. She wants that martyr sort of. She's got this martyr thing in her head, and all the people she's admired in the Bible died these tragic deaths, like Saint Sebastian, like Jesus. Yeah. So she's getting the death, her ideal death. So it's almost like she's orgasming.
Yeah. But you know what? That's what they all loved about him, is the fact that they would go to him with this, they'd go, can we try this? And he was, rather than a lot of directors would go, no, this is how I want it.
Or not, yeah.
He would go, Yeah, that sounds good. And they said they all felt that they could go to him with stuff, and a lot of the stuff that they went to him with is made the film what it is.
And he's good as a director in that way, because he had to gain their trust. Say like with the naked shower scene at the beginning. Again, the new one, they sort of gloss over it. You never see Chloe Moretz naked. You don't see her mates naked. Yeah. Not that it's important, but when the actresses who was a bit nervous at first, they shot Sissy Spacek's part first, of her naked in the shower, and he showed the rushes to all the other actresses in the scene, and they was like, oh, well, if she's naked, I'll do it too. So that's why all of a sudden half of them were naked. Famously, Paul Hirsch, who's an editor of the film, loads of his friends were saying to him, how comes your name's not on the credits? On the opening credits. His name is on the opening credits.
They don't notice.
But it's where Nancy Allen's walking across the screen completely naked. And he had to say to him, when she's naked, and I went, oh, we didn't notice.
Yeah.
Funny that.
Yeah. It's like, it's not porno-y sort of style.
Oh, no, it's artistic.
It's the thing,
all the girls who watched it afterwards, they said it's beautiful. It looks like art. Because they're not walking about, they're not overly sexualised. No. They're not particularly attractive with their massive bushes. And like,
that was back then, though. You've got to understand was in the 70s.
Anyway, my point is, if it had been like a 90s one, you'd have had people looking like Pamela Anderson walking about and stuff. But these were like real-looking girls. Yeah. You know, real-looking women walking about,
and I'm sure they look at their bodies now and they go, look at my body then.
But they weren't posing. No. Again, which is what they go for so much now. Every shot has to be someone posing and and that's what ruins like the new Carrie. And you think, well, no, because it's not.
Not one of
girls
them.
Girls look like real girls. Yeah. You know,
not one of them is like trying to sort of look glamorous posing, for it. Not one of them, and that's what I like about you.
It feels real.
I didn't notice that, but it's true. Like, because Nancy Allen, she's like running across and hitting someone with a towel or something, so she's all wobbling all over the place. But so she would really walk into it all sexy like otherwise.
Yeah, like she's doing a strut like slow, a catwalk. Yeah. But that's not realistic because girls in the locker room, they've got no boys there to sort of try and impress. They're literally just having fun being girls. Yeah. You know? So you'd put this as one of your favourite films, you reckon?
I would say this is definitely one of my favourite films. It's my earliest memory of a film. I cannot tell you how many times I've seen this film. Each time I watch it, I forget exactly how good it is. Yeah. And the score is fantastic. I love the score. Like when she's in the shower, that music in the shower is so beautiful. And also the song where she's dancing with Tommy at the prom. That I never dreamed someone like you could love someone like me. Such a beautiful song with such beautiful words, and you know, it's just like. It's got so many beautiful scenes. Like where he was waiting so long to produce this film, he had such a long time to think of different like storyboards. Like he wanted to do this shot and this shot. He wanted to try the split screen. He wanted to try the slow motion.
See, I like the split screen. Yeah. I like how it's weird because you don't tend to have it in the film. And apparently, originally, the entire prom sequence was split screen, which then afterwards he went, no, because it's too distracting. Let's just have the split screen when she goes bonkers, you know, which I'm glad they did.
It works.
Although I'm just thinking about that. I've got 3 issues with the film.
Right.
Aesthetic issues, you know.
Okay.
One, them at the prom spinning round. Maybe if he'd done the camera going the same way and the way the background's still spinning, but they're not spinning so much, or maybe if he just slowed down the amount of spinning, if he'd done it slower.
I know what you're saying because I know I felt the same, but I think it was to basically to let the audience know something's going to happen here.
Well, see,
make you feel uncomfortable, which it does make you feel uncomfortable.
I think it's because where he's showing that she's being swept off her feet with all this emotion, all this good stuff happening to her. She's waited all her life, and it's almost like she's in a whirlwind spinning round, and she's getting carried away off her feet. And
I think it's the bite at the very end of it because it goes around a bit. I think he picks her up and spins with her, which makes it look like it's
going on for too long for me. Yeah. So that's one thing.
Okay.
A second thing is when John Travolta and Nancy Allen crash in the car. Do you know what I'm going to say about the screen spinning round? Because obviously they didn't want to have the actors spinning round in the car, so all they done is they shot the footage and they spin the whole footage round. Yeah. And it's a bit distracting because especially if you're watching it on the screen, all of a sudden you can see like the widescreen, the bars spin round, and it reminds you that you're watching a film. Yeah. I know why he done it. It was obviously on paper. He thought, well, that's a good idea. We just shoot them screaming and we'll just spin it on the camera. And probably watching it enough times, they convince themselves it works. But I'm sure if it given,
I've never found it an issue that bit.
Because
I think the widescreen is basically the windscreen, isn't it?
Yeah, but if they'd done something to make it look like that, maybe if they just took the edge off the black, then maybe it would have worked. But it's so obvious; it's just a thing spinning round.
Yeah, okay. Well, I've never had a problem with that bit.
Again, this is just nitpicking, right? And then the third thing, which ain't really their fault, because originally they was having the houses bombarded by stones. They'd shot all this outside footage of the stones falling down on the house, and it was quite a hard thing to do with all the rocks coming down. And when he looked at it, he said, "No, it looks rubbish," so he cut it out. Yeah. However, the inside shot, you still have the stones coming through.
But you don't notice. The thing is, I know they've said that when you look at it, it's like the house is just falling apart. It wouldn't necessarily look like it's meteors coming through the house.
Yeah,
because that is from the very beginning. They filmed a scene, didn't they? They filmed a scene right at the beginning with Carrie as a little girl, and she's looking at the next door neighbour who's sunbathing, and she says, "What are those things there, like about her boobs?" She goes, "They're your dirty pillows," and she goes, "That's what Mama calls them." And all of a sudden the mum goes, "Carrie," and all that calls her in, and all of a sudden you see all these stones start coming from the sky. That's what's supposed to sort of then tie up to the part at the end. But then when you look at that, the house is like falling apart. That is basically, to me, it looks like it's just where the house is falling in on itself. Yeah, I wouldn't look and go, "There's these big stones coming through." I don't think. I mean, I've never looked at it. It's only when you hear the story that there was these big sort of meteor-y stones coming through. But that could just basically be bits of the house falling through.
I just always thought it was because the house is so pokey. I like the house. I like how small and pokey it is, and they've got the little attic room for her. But I remember watching it years ago, thinking there's a lot of stuff, rubble coming through for such a small house. But then finding out about that, I thought, that makes sense. But again, I don't hold that against him. But see, it would have been something in post.
I only noticed that when it was drawn to my attention, the fact that there were stones coming through. Then you notice it. The amount of times I'd seen that film, I never looked in and thought, "That's funny, what's all these stones?" Because you don't actually see big stones coming through. You just sort of see big sort of holes appearing, and it's just like the house is falling apart to me.
Linda Blair auditioned.
Oh, did she?
Yeah, she was in consideration for it, but in the end she said she didn't want to be typecast because of Exorcist. She didn't want to be But she would have only been 2 years older than what she was in The Exorcist. Well, Exorcist was 73, so 3 years older she would have been. 3 years older, yeah. It's about
I suppose she would have been about 15, 16.
Age. And another one, De Palma also considered Louise Fletcher from One Flew Over the Cuckoo's Nest, Ratchet, to play the mum. Which makes sense. Yeah. Nurse Ratchet, again, another iconic.
She's got that hardness about her.
Yeah, matriarchal sort of disciplinary, and that harshness would have still worked in Carrie. But again, going back to Laurie Piper, I think it's all the way she approached it. The fact that she thought it was a comedy.
Piper Laurie.
What did I say?
Laurie Piper.
That's how I know. That's what she'd asked me to call her. Piper Laurie, where she approaches it as a comedy. And she's so over the top. I think it works so much better than someone deliberately doing stern face, because she doesn't do stern face.
No,
she doesn't have to. She's just sort of like it's, and I think that's what works so well. She originally read the script and said no. It seems a bit cliche and whatever. And it was her partner who'd seen Brian De Palma's other work, which is more comedic, and said, "Well, he's like a comedy director, Brian De Palma." And she went, "Oh, okay, let me read it again." And then she started laughing. She went, "Okay, I get it now. I know why."
Yeah, but I look at her performance. I don't look at it as comedy.
No, but you can imagine if it had different music, it might be a bit, oh God, the nutty woman kind of thing. But it works so well. Back when you were saying about the score, so the score was done by Pino Donaggio.
Yeah.
But it was originally going to be Bernard Herrmann, who famously done the Psycho score.
Yeah, but he died, didn't he? Died?
Yeah, he died, but he was lined up to do it. De Palma's had loads of influences from Hitchcock, particularly Psycho, because he's even named this school. It was like the Bates School, wasn't it? It was
Bates, yeah, Bates High School.
Bates High School.
But the Psycho sound like the four-note kind of
the four-note violin. Yeah, that's the exact four-note violin that you'd have that was in Psycho. So whenever she's doing her telekinesis, and it worked well for it. And it was one of those things. He kept saying, "I want like the Psycho high-pitched thing. Yeah. I want like that." And then he realised, why don't I just use that? Yeah. Because that's good enough, And you see Amy Irving, Sue, sort of drifting off, and you think, is this a dream? And obviously they shot it backwards, and you can see the car going backwards in the background, just to give it that.
It does give that dream look. Like
it is. It works so well. And with the score again, it's sort of lulling you in. You think, oh, this is like the sad ending. We are sad that Carrie died, and all of a sudden, dun, 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 and it really does get you.
Because it was probably, there wasn't many films that done that at that time.
No.
You got to understand now, this day and age, if someone done, you'd be waiting for the jump scare.
Yeah.
This was like an original jump scare because there probably wasn't. What other jump scares? What other films with jump scares? Like big main horror films that you could think of at that point had a big jump scare like that at the end.
I don't want to spoil other horror films. I can think of a few, but yeah.
What before that?
Yeah, I can think of one specifically, but I don't want to say it because it spoils that film.
Okay.
Budget of $1.8 million, and it made $33 million.
That's good.
Which is
and still to this day will be making money. You know, like that's what I'm saying. It's like it's a classic.
So the critics rate it 93%.
That's good.
That's very high, especially considering the shoddy camera work when it's the car spinning around.
Yeah. All right. What's the audience?
The audience is 77%.
Right. So where would it go in your horror films?
Horror films.
Because I know American Werewolf is your favourite horror film, so where would it be?
Well, I love quite a lot of horror films, and there's films which some people would say, is that horror? Like Alien, the first Alien for me is definitely a horror.
They say the second one is more like sci-fi.
The second one I think is like Vietnam in space.
Yeah.
And, it's
more
brilliant.
action, it's like more Terminator-ish.
But back onto horrors, obviously American Werewolf in London, Halloween, The Shining, The Thing... there's so many, but I think I'd be surprised if I done a top 20 horror list. I'd be surprised if Carrie wasn't in it. It probably more towards. I don't know if it would be in my top 10.
But it's definitely my number one, and that's I think because it goes back so far with me. You know,
over Exorcist.
Yeah.
Really?
Yeah. Carrie is my favourite horror film because it is the first.
So you're not going to say this when we're doing the Exorcist podcast. Exorcist is my favourite horror film.
I won't.
Because I know you love that.
Exorcist is good. Exorcist is a good film, but Carrie is my ultimate horror film. I love American Werewolf in London. I love Halloween. I love Texas Chainsaw Massacre. I love all the
first Nightmare on Elm Street.
First Nightmare on Elm Street,
and the third one's good as well, and the fourth one's okay.
Yeah.
Demons 2.
I like Demons 2.
I love Demons 2.
It's badly dubbed.
I highly rate Carrie, and I only class it as a horror because I suppose technically it is quite scary. There is horrible moments, but I think, as I said, again, I place it more of a tragedy. And she is such a tragic figure, and it's so unique to think of. I mean, can you think of another sort of starring horror character who you just have nothing but sympathy for?
No.
I mean, I feel sorry for David Norton's character in American Werewolf in London.
Yeah.
But let's face it, when he's a werewolf, there's no describe. That's a monster who's just being bloodlust.
Yeah.
She doesn't want to be pushed that far.
No.
Carrie. She's just constantly pushed. All her buttons are constantly pushed, but she
by
doesn't.
Everybody.
But this is the thing. Again, she never looks like she's going to sort of snap. She just occasionally little things like go away, like pushing people away with her little mind things, and then she shatters into a ball. She had to be put on stage, told that she was normal before.
Do you think the telekinesis got that strength because of her periods?
There's a common thread with things like that. Even in comic books, in the X-Men, for example.
Yeah.
The X-Men, vast majority of Marvel characters are mutants, as they're called, with their special abilities, whether turning things to ice or telekinesis and stuff like this. They say it manifests through puberty. Yeah. It's when because it makes sense, because up to that point you're just a sapling, you're just this little baby, and when you start growing in certain areas and getting hairy and stuff, if you've got these dormant powers, it would make sense that they would become more prevalent in
because it shows as soon as her period, basically, because before that she probably didn't have these powers, or she might have had little slight ones, but it suddenly starts coming and it turns into something that she's got no control over, and where she's so full of rage, where she's just been humiliated more than she's ever possibly been humiliated in her life in front of this crowd of people that she thinks are laughing at her, that it's like her brain just snaps. So then that's why the powers take over, because that's not her in her normal frame of mind, like killing everyone, because that's not her character. But she just gets pushed, and I like it in the way that you go, well, so you shouldn't have fucking bullied her.
Yeah, I think people miss the point. It's of its time.
Yeah.
Some people look at it and go, oh, it's dated now. Even Stephen King recently said, oh, it feels a bit dated now. But because it's set in the 70s, because it was made in the 70s. I think you're sort of looking past that. You don't watch old 1930s sort of like private eye films and go, oh, he's wearing hats. Men don't wear hats nowadays.
Yeah,
it's
I mean,
stupid.
it's going to date. It's going to date. But the fact of the matter is, if you can carry it through different decades and still find an audience for it, then you've done the job.
Well,
and it's a classic.
No, I don't think it does date. I don't think it is dated at all. I just think it just shows you a snapshot of its time. Like we said of American Werewolf in London, it's a snapshot of early 80s UK, Britain. It wouldn't look right if they got rid of the music, if they got rid of the punks, because that's showing you where it is. And early 70s America was all like funky and disco, and you had all these like sort of over the top garish clothes and stuff.
Yeah.
If people try to replicate it now, set something in the 70s, they wish they could get it that authentic and that space spot on. So I think when people criticise it for that, they're missing the point altogether.
Yeah, no, well, I absolutely love the film, and I will continue to love it. So I'm glad you liked it anyway.
Yeah.
A couple of interesting facts I wanted to add as well is Sissy Spacek in real life was a prom queen.
Oh, really?
Yeah, she was actually prom queen in real life, which is quite interesting
Before
to see.
this?
Yeah, obviously before this, because
How
she was in her
old was
20s. She's in her 20s in this. Oh. So she was actually a real life prom queen. Also, PJ Soles was married to Dennis Quaid.
Right, yeah, I knew that.
And round about the age, I think that was round about the year they got married, was round about when she was in Halloween. Oh. Yeah, I noticed as well with PJ Soles, she's got very similar eyes to her mum. You know, that kind of look.
Who's her mum?
No, our mum.
Oh. So her mum's our mum?
Yeah, well, I don't know. No, but if you look at similar sort of eyes, can you see what I'm talking about? PJ Soles round the eyes? No?
No, I can, but I like PJ Soles.
Oh, okay then. Well, I'll take that.
Then this woman you fancy look like your mum.
All right, I'll take that out then. Take that out.
I don't see it at all.
Right.
But
so what we are doing next week then?
It's the 7th one. So I'm going to do 7.
Right, okay. I've never seen 7.
Well, you can watch 7.
All right, okay, well I'll have to.
And pretend you don't know what happens.
Well, no, that's the thing. I know the end.
Know. But just enjoy the film.
See, someone ruined it for me ages ago. I don't know how, but it's like, well, what's the point of watching the film?
People spoil stuff, don't they? So, thanks for listening, and we'll see you again soon.
Yeah, check us out on iTunes, Spotify, YouTube, Instagram, I think.
Pornhub.
No, not Pornhub. And you can contact us on our email, which is benchamovieclub@gmail.com. I haven't set it up yet, but
you got to set it up then.
Yeah, well, by the time this gets deleted,
someone else has already set it up.
Yeah, well, I'll do it now. Well, anyway, thanks for listening, and I hope you enjoyed the episode, and we'll catch up with you soon. All right, see you later. Bye bye.